and Guru, he would not give what you ask at all, even if it's about the basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing. He may not give that. That's one kind of test of surrender.
He will give in the initial stage.
Second kind of test in surrender is whatever you ask, he'll give. That's also a test.
To pull the people in.
I don't know why he does that, but he does that.
He does that.
So, if you can surrender the result of your action as Baba's final decision, then that's a beginning point, and you would cover maybe 50 to 60% of the entire surrender process with that one piece. Now, why is it difficult to do that? Any thoughts?
Association of oneself.
Attachment.
Because of the mind.
Ego. Yeah.
Because of the
All
mind.
nice words.
Because of the mind, it doesn't allow you to stay focused.
Right, because though we feel that we are relating Baba in our day-to-day life, somewhere we are not fully. In a place of worship or prayer or temple, or in a state of happy equilibrium of the mind, we think of Baba in a nice way. But if a desired outcome does not come, then we attribute that to somebody else. We don't attribute that to Baba. We don't say that Baba has made sure that he has not given this to me in my own safety. We wouldn't say that. Because there is something called faith which is missing. Right? So that brings us to the aspects of trust and faith. Apart from the two of you, what is the difference between trust and faith, if there is any? There are words like trust and faith. Is there a difference, if any?
Trust is what is already there.
Okay.
And the faith is what you believe in.
Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Any other?
Trust is temporary, faith is eternal.
Okay. There's another word called belief. Is there any relation between belief, trust, and faith? Because these, sorry?
Belief is accepting without hope for experience.
Excellent. So, trust is that. When you say I trust XYZ, you don't know anything about that person, but you're trusting. Any examples?
Yeah.
Parents. As children growing up, that little boy or girl that's walking inside here, she doesn't know about much about the parents, but will happily sleep in her lap or get into the car and sleep with the trust that she will be taken home safely. That is trust. Faith is, after knowing everything about that, or to a maximum extent about that entity, you are having faith. If you have faith, you will not have fear. If there is fear, there is no faith. So when Baba says, when I'm here, why fear? He's saying that please develop the faith. We develop the faith by understanding that entity more and more. So the road to faith starts with trust. How do we trust not knowing somebody? Somebody has figured this out. Somebody else has understood the concept of God. And when he says that I have understood this, and this seems to be the right path to go forward, we trust in the words of that person. And we start the journey. And eventually experience what the giver of that message has experienced. As an example, the Maharshis, who have had a one-on-one with all these gods in form and formless forms, they have put those things in Vedas and scriptures and given it to us. So, if we simply follow what has been given, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, that's called wisdom. If somebody says that I'll figure this out myself, all the best, I'm sure he will. But it'll take sometime. It's like, since we believe in simple examples, traveling from here to India, simplest is go to the nearest airport, take a plane and reach India. Somebody says, no, I don't believe in the concept of flight. I would like to walk and get to India. He will, but someday. There are many pitfalls. There are oceans to cross. There are miles to, bridges to hike. So it becomes difficult. So start with trust. Make sure that you are surrendering the result of your action to the God or Guru that you are choosing. And every time a result is unexpected, say that the final judgment of my effort and its corresponding result is with Baba and not you. Only then he is pleased. Only then the dynamic principle of God gets involved in your life. Otherwise, he is only a sakshi.
So there are times when we don't think of God and do things, and then we feel like, oh, I should have prayed and done something. So is that when we invoke the dynamic principle before we do stuff and then surrender the result?
Right. That's a process, that's a journey. All of us go through that. On hindsight, we think that we should have done like this, we should have done like that. We should have probably better utilized the principle of God. Whenever you wake up, whenever you realize that this is how you should have done it, that is the aspect of awareness, that is the aspect of starting the journey or continuing the journey. And we should lead a life of zero regret. 10 years back, I should have done this. 15 years back, I should have taken that decision. Or I should have avoided that decision. No, none of that. As is, where is condition, right now, you start the journey and we get there. Yeah.
So you spoke about trust and faith. And again, something very, an example or something from our own life. Recently, my own sister, she lost her son. So when he was going through something, all I told her was, have faith. And then, after he was gone, she picks up the call. The first time I spoke to her when he was gone, she said, you told me to have faith. I had no answer.
Answer is very simple. We are expecting a certain result. In this case, it's an extreme example of survival of life, right? Continuity of life. But even then, the faith should not be flinching. If this has happened, it is good for that person, it is good for me. It's very difficult in those cases, but that is the truth. That is a real truth because all of us know that we have a finite number of breaths. In this room, after 100 years, none of us will be there, at least in these bodies, right? But hopefully none of us will be there in the universe, but some of us will come back, keep coming back. So if death is an accepted aspect of life, attributing the negative aspects of it to God is incorrect, but emotionally speaking, the person has to go through that process of pain in order to understand this concept later. So human emotions, right? We should not show vairagyam, we should not show self-imposed sannyasam if we are going through certain human emotions. Completion of human emotions is very important in order to qualify for spirituality. If it is happiness, see the end of it. If it is sadness, make sure you finish it off. After that, there should not be one tear coming out of the eyes. Finish it, get to a completion. That's very important. So, every emotion that is in the human space on earth, none of it is a waste. Everything has a reason and it serves a purpose for the growth of the soul. None of it is waste. Be it nasty things, be it natural calamities, be it wealth or success or otherwise, or any kind of ugliness that we see in the society, none of that is waste. Everything serves a purpose and is there for a reason. This needs to be understood. Otherwise, if it is waste, why would God place that in our life? So, to understand relationships around us, to understand the circumstances around us, these two things put together are called life. To understand that, we need something called wisdom. And this is what we need to ask a guru. I don't know all these things, I can't figure this out myself. You tell me, you give me the wisdom to discriminate between what is right and wrong for me and help me walk in my path. If this kind of a prayer is made, he'll certainly get involved in our life. Any questions on the three principles of God? I want to make sure that is clear. Just to repeat, one is the witness principle that does not respond to prayers, who is inside of us in a light form. The other aspect of God is a dynamic principle which responds, punishes, takes care, looks after us. Third principle is a static that does not respond and not even noticing, it doesn't do anything. That is called the static principle, which is outside of the Brahmanda, outside of the universe. These three principles put together in one entity is called a Sadguru.
So is Sadguru is a god or not?
You tell me now. He is an embodiment of all the three principles of God. So he is somebody who started off as a human being, realized the God in him, got to the stage of moksha, did not execute that, which means he did not leave the creation, but he came back for the rest of the people who are struggling with these questions. That's a Sadguru. The dictionary meaning of Sadguru or definition of Sadguru is Sat Guru, right? Sat means truth. Somebody who speaks the truth after having experienced the truth is a Sadguru. Somebody who speaks the truth without experiencing it is not a Durguru, but he's just a teacher. He's read books, he's heard discourses, and then he's talking about it. That itself is good. That's like a satsang. But Sadguru is somebody who knows us inside out, who has experienced the final truth, and who has now come back for people like us for our final journey. So the title Sadguru needs to be respected to the highest possible extent. It should be attributed to somebody of that level, of Baba's level.
Can we call it as a thinking entity?
Thinking, responding, observing, guiding. He is in us before a thought in us can come. He is in us before the thought. He is not just witnessing and responding to the thoughts and prayers, but he sits in us behind the origin of the thought itself. In one of the sessions next, I'll talk about sequence of layers that all of us carry, right from the senses to the inside story of the body. There you'll know where does he sit. He's behind something called Ahankara.
So God is Mukti only for everything. Is a Prana Pratishtha really is affecting the sun?
Yeah.
People are statual.
Prana Pratishtha is important. Mantra is important. Yantra is important. Because the God is Yantra Swarupa, Mantra Swarupa, right? So when we install that Yantra and do Prana Pratishtha, that is the responsive dynamic aspect of God. The Vigraham we have with a face and limbs only for our convenience. Though we are praying to the Vigraham, the Yantra is actually responding. I have seen a nice Yantra here.
Where?
Near Baba.
Near Baba.
Yeah. How do you explain something so big that is in our Sanatana Dharma to children who are growing up here?
By
Or
learning what it is.
it is very hard for them to even, oh, I don't see God, so why should I believe Sai Baba?
Right. So it's difficult to make a person religious, but you can make a person cultural. So Sanatana Dharma is an aspect of culture, religion, and religious practices, plus tapas and sadhana, all put together. is Sanatana Dharma. So if prayer, if worship, if bhajans are not being accepted, introduce them to the aspect of culture of Bharat. That is possible. Food is an aspect of culture. Language is an aspect of culture. Art is an aspect of culture. Many things. So to that extent, if you can keep them engaged and once in a while visit India, that visit, without our knowledge, will add value to their souls. I understand the question. I've faced this at least 20 times in the last 1 year, but that's something that we should try to understand what is Sanatana Dharma and pick and choose aspects, because today's generation is very logical.
Yeah.
They're looking for logical answers to questions. I think 20 years ago, the kind of questions that we used to ask, they are very small now. Today's generation is able to ask better questions. So to appeal to that, there are logical answers to everything. If a person vanishes from here and appears there, there's a logical answer to that as to how it can happen. In yoga, it is possible. But the question is, we need to understand how it happens and kind of explain to them.
So you just mentioned that God is behind every thought. But then, why is your mind not steady?
Because that's the nature of mind. Biggest risk that God has taken with humans is that He's given a free will. He said,
because even that is questioned in today's science.
right. Yeah, science is able to question a lot of things. The problem for science is that the instruments and radio astronomy and all these light studies that they're trying to do and the God particle they're trying to figure out is only to assist the senses, the gross and the subtle senses that we have. These are only going to assist them. And if that new information that we receive passes my logical understanding, then I will agree to it. And unfortunately, the aspect of godliness is after we finish the logic. With senses, we cannot understand God. With surrender, we can. So free will is an aspect of intellect where what is buddhi, right? I know this is a stage, this is a mic, that's a phone. I'm able to distinguish one to the other. That is intellect. And using this distinction, I can take a decision. If I need to be more audible, I move closer to the mic. If I need to be less audible, I need to go back. This is an aspect of intelligence, very basic intelligence. The application of this intelligence is called free will. And though God is sitting behind that thought, He does not interfere in that. That's the witness principle of God. Because that's the design. That's how we have been designed. That's His law. That you do whatever you want, I will not interfere in your life. The day you want me to interfere, I can. So God, by Himself, does not carry any attitude, even that of grace or love.
But He puts
What?
a limitation on it.
He doesn't.
He does.
Otherwise, there will not be so much bad. Take the names in the last 100 or 1000 years of people who have done so much of bad to the culture and to humanity. If He really wanted to put a limitation, He would have said, Mr. X, you've done this much of activities that have made the humans suffer. Now I will not let you go beyond. No, He doesn't. He lets you continue. But when prayed to, He will start responding. So He's like a ocean. Ocean by itself does not have an attitude. But we can create an attitude by getting involved with the ocean. So that's His personality. So statements like, God knows everything, I don't need to ask Him, He will do whatever is right for me, are incorrect. He knows everything, but He will not get involved unless you ask. That's where the difference between God and Guru comes. Guru also knows everything like God does. He can read our mind. He is also sitting behind our thought. But when surrender happens to the Guru, he will make sure that you don't take action which is detrimental to your own progress. That's the difference between God and you.
So that means Sadhguru actually will do that without asking me.
Yeah.
Because the Satcharitra, one of the...
After surrender.
Yeah, after surrender.
Yeah. Surrender itself is a lifetime of an effort.
No, the surrender means complete surrender, it takes time, but at least actually you have the faith on the Guru, Sadhguru. So when you have faith and started towards the surrender, so that is how actually like...
He'll start getting involved in your life. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
He'll create obstacles to something that you should not be doing.
So that's why I think in Sadhguru's point of view, we don't need to even ask whatever we want actually. Once you surrender everything, saying that you are my complete person actually, like you know each and everything. So when you have that aspect, I think Sadhguru will actually take care.
It's easy when you ask. Sadhguru encourages you to ask.
But when you say ask means actually ask doesn't have any limits actually. So anything that you can ask, but he won't be able to do all the time.
That's a good point. Now, greed versus contentment.
Yeah, greed.
Right? So when you don't ask your guru and you go put your effort and get a result, there is a greed behind that. You will want more. You have one car, you will want 10 cars. You have a 2,000 square feet house, you want a 17,000 square feet house after. But if you put your effort along with asking a Sadguru and your desire is fulfilled with the intervention of a Sadguru, right behind the fulfillment of that desire is contentment. Contentment is a threshold of Vairagyam. Vairagyam is a threshold for liberation. That's the reason you need to ask. If you don't have desires, very good. If you have desires, if you don't ask, that's hypocrisy. You should ask. Ours is an asking matam. You should keep asking. And I know Baba once said,
Example is
I want you to keep asking me anything and everything that you want. Because one day you will get to a stage where you will ask me what I want you to ask. What is that? Moksha, mukti, whatever it is.
Liberation.
Liberation. So what is liberation?
Free from rebirth.
Right, so a little bit of context. Whenever we need to take a break, let me know. You can pause. So,
So we talked about the ego. So how actually people can get rid of the ego? There are a lot of people who actually talk so much about the Baba and everything, but when it comes to the personal, it is very hard to actually get rid of the ego.
right.
So is there any
So the answer is,
suggestion for
there is no way you can get rid of ego. But you can get rid of the foundation of ego, which is the samskaras. There is something called samskara. So what is the samskara? Tendencies. They are behavioral tendencies. So if you like music, that's a samskara. If you dislike music, that's a samskara. Like that, the stories end. How does a samskara get created inside us?
Repetitive habits.
Right. So, right. So in technical word of spirituality, it's called a vasana.
No, samskara is, I think, good tendencies, that's what it was.
Good and bad, both. So we look at a certain event or a person or an object or a circumstance and we create a certain emotion in us. When that emotion is repeated with intensity, it goes inside us and remains in something called a consciousness. And that is called a vasana. That's the word given to it. Maybe because it's a smell that remains inside. Now, not audible? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry? Okay. So that's a vasana that goes inside and remains in the consciousness. Consciousness is somewhere in the body. We'll talk about that if people are interested. We take a rebirth and that relevant vasana, looking at a certain external stimulus. Let's say you have a vasana of a liking towards ice cream. When you pass by an ice cream shop, your mind pulls you towards that ice cream shop because you want to eat that. That is called a samskara. A vasana that has gone inside and remained inside comes out when there is an external stimulus, and that is called a samskara. Now, samskaras are the foundation on which ego is built. If you can collapse samskaras, ego falls.
Basically, attachment.
Yeah, that's another big subject,
Big subject.
attachment.
Strong likes and dislikes.
All the strong likes and dislikes need to be eliminated.
What are vrittis?
Vritti is a trigger that comes from consciousness to the buddhi. And buddhi takes action because of a trigger that comes from the consciousness. That is called chitta vritti. And yoga talks about chitta vritti nirodham. Nirodham. Nirodham is avoidance or subjugation or closure or reducing. Pranayama is supposed to be one of the ways to reduce chitta vritti during sadhana stage. And once you completely eliminate all of them, it cleanses all of your consciousness. Guru is a person who does not have any samskara of his own. He started off as a human being, became a yogi, came back as a finished yogi, became a guru. Yogi need not become a guru. Yogi is somebody who's understood himself or his self. Guru is somebody who understands us also, apart from himself. Because prapancha gnana, they say, is more difficult to understand than brahma gnana. Right? So, chitta vritti nirodham is yoga. And if you can cleanse all your samskaras or weaken them at least, otherwise helplessly we are doing things which we don't want to do and later regret. If you are able to take care of cleansing your samskaras, then your surrender happens faster, your buddhi is in place, the nature of mind is controlled. You cannot control mind ever, but you can control the nature of mind. You cannot control body ever, but you can control the nature of the aging of the body.
Cleansing can happen only through senses.
Cleansing happens with the interaction of buddhi in chitta, in consciousness. But the starting point is senses.
Because if I like something
Yeah.
because of my vasana, and I know that's not right, still it goes there. Right? Unless you have realized that instant consciousness of saying, okay, this is not right, it always happens.
Right. Right.
The senses are the one which basically
Absolutely. Absolutely.
accumulates.
So, senses by themselves are just gross, they are inanimate. But senses, when the senses collect certain information, store in the mind, and let the buddhi take action based on the sensory perceptions, that is the place of control. So buddhi needs to be controlled.
That's the discrimination.
That's the discrimination. Helpless discrimination, helpless taking action even if you don't want to take, is because of a samskara. But through pranayama, if you are able to control that, then even if your mind goes there, you have a strong free will not to go there. So if somebody says that use your free will, turn inward, and don't do bad stuff and all that, it's all very superficial at an intellectual level. We all understand all of that. We are all grown up. But how? What is the mechanism of getting there? What is the mechanism of not doing something which we don't want to do? Is something that yoga teaches.
Will you be able to give us few methods of cleansing?
Oh yes, certainly. One is to install Baba safely in your heart. So that's it. With that, maybe we can just take a small break. So the way Baba said,